Yevgeny Ananyevich Khaldei was born on March 23, 1917, to a Jewish family in Yuzovka, within the Russian Empire, now Donetsk in eastern Ukraine. He was obsessed with photography from his childhood, having reportedly built his first camera with his grandmother's eyeglasses. He started working with the Soviet press agency TASS at the age of 19, in October 25, 1936, as a photographer. His father and 3 of his 4 sisters were murdered by the Nazis during the war. In 1945, he persuaded his uncle to create a large Soviet flag after seeing Joe Rosenthal's photo of the flag raising at Iwo Jima. Khaldei took it with him to Berlin. He also later took photographs of the Nazi war criminals at the Nuremberg trials and the Red Army during its offensive in Japanese-occupied Manchuria. He continued to work in photojournalism after World War II as a TASS staff photographer, but was criticized in a performance evaluation in 1947. After returning to peacetime conditions, he failed to develop himself at all, and at the present moment he is considered a passable photojournalist. The reasons for this are several. First, all the praise that was heaped upon him as a military photojournalist finally went to his head, and he rested on his laurels. His growth as a photojournalist stopped. The other reason has to do with Khaldei's cultural level, which is exceptionally low. In October 1948, Khaldei received notice that he was being dismissed because of TASS staff downsizing. He continued to photograph, working as a freelance photographer for Soviet newspapers, and focused on capturing the scenes of everyday life. In 1959, he got a job at the newspaper Pravda, where he worked until he was forced to retire in 1970. His wartime photographs were collected in a 93-page book, called At Murmansk do Berlina, or Murmansk to Berlin. In English, it was published in 1984. His work continues to be distributed through the SOF Photo Agency, which has operated in the West since 1932. Exhibitions of Khaldei's photographs began to be held in the West in the 1990s. His most renowned photographs were taken when he was a Red Army photographer between 1941 to 1946. The photographs emphasized his feelings for the historic moments and his sense of humor. One of the more famous anecdotes was from the Nuremberg trials, where Hermann Goering was on trial. Khaldei said about the Goering shot that, when we received orders to leave Nuremberg, I asked an American colleague to photograph me with Goering. Goering remembered that, because of me, he had been hit with a club, and hence he always turned his head aside when I came into the courtroom. When he noticed I wanted to get into the picture with him, he put down his hand in front of his face. While Khaldei frequently staged or manipulated his photographs, he insisted that this was to signify the importance and add strength to a particular event. His work was also admired by the elite of the Soviet Union, and he is renowned for commissioning portraits for leaders such as Joseph Stalin, Mikhail Gorbachev and Boris Yeltsin. His most iconic photo was of a Red Army soldier raising a Soviet flag above the German Reichstag at the end of World War II. The Soviet magazine Ogoniok published the photograph on Sunday, May 13, 1945. When Khaldei arrived at the Reichstag, he asked the soldiers present to help with the staging of the photo shoot. The one who was attaching the flag was 18-year-old Private Oleg Kovalev from Kiev, in THD Ukrainian SSR. The 2 others were Abdul Kakim Izmailov from Dagestan, in Russia, and Leonid Gorychev, from Minsk, in the Belarusian SSR. The photo was taken with a Leica 3 rangefinder camera with a 35mm f3.5 lens. The photo was a reenactment of an earlier flag raising where no photograph was taken, as it happened at 10:40 p.m. on Monday, April 30, 1945, while the building was still held by the Germans. In Guy's original ceremony, a group of 4 soldiers fought their way to the roof, where the 23-year-old Private Mikhail Minin fastened an improvised flagpole to the crown of a statue on the roof. Since it happened at night and under enemy fire, no photo was taken. German snipers shot down the flag the next day anyway. The surrender of the Reichstag came on Wednesday, May 2, 1945, and only after that did he scale the building along with the other 3 soldiers to stage the photo. Because Khaldei worked in TASS from October 25, 1936, to October 7, 1948, his TASS photo works are in public domain in Russia as of Tuesday, January 1, 2019, since they were copyrighted by TASS, and such copyrights of a legal entity expire no later than 70 years after publication, or creation, if work was not published in proper time. Yevgeny Khaldei died in Moscow on October 6, 1997. He was 80 years.